Hi, this is Ed in San Diego, California, and today is the 8th of April, and we're here inside the studio, which I affectionately call Global Meeting Room. And here we are on Global TV Talk Show, as you can see. This is a really great piece of art I've had now for a little bit more than 6 years, and I thank my good friend and collaborator early on, Paul, who developed this for us. And here it is 6 years later, more than 1,100 productions. And today's program will start in just a couple of minutes. We have a special guest in Bangalore, India, coming on live. Her name is Sangitha. Pardon me. Very interesting woman, an executive with a very large organization with important things to talk about today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you. Hi, we're back. I'm in San Diego, and with us in Bangalore, India, is Sangitha. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Perfectly, Ed. It's Sangitha.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you very much. Okay, so when I found you on LinkedIn, just scrolling around, I see that you had this dual career, this dual responsibility of business travel and talent mobility.
True.
And I think that's the first time I've seen that. And I'm super interested. Um, how long have you been doing this, having this dual responsibility?
Well, in this organization, 12 years, but when I started my career, I began with travel. And some components of handling both travel and to some amount, better mobility and business visa support was in my first corporate career with Tata Consultancy Services and core mobility in Oracle and IBM. And then over here, the opportunity to handle both. And like you said, the talent acquisition team will find it exceedingly difficult to find my replacement because in most organizations, travel is separate and mobility is separate.
Yeah. So my thinking now is, having thought about this the past few weeks, uh, that it makes total sense. It's a matter of logistics, project management.
Sure, it does. And in fact, I think what we found a disconnect, at least what I saw in like one of the organizations. If you're depending on a separate team for the ticketing, where it's required for your business visa, for example, you had a dependency on them to give it to you quickly because that's part of the documents required to process the visa. Similarly, earlier, the airlines allowed you to do a so-called dummy ticket, but then they realized a lot of cost impact for them. And then, finding out or letting the admin people know that, yeah, the visa is through and then they can go ahead and book the actual ticket would also have a cost impact because if you book at the last minute, this was pre-pandemic, pre many other things, when the normal world existed, that you still had to pay through your nose if you booked at the last minute, right? So you have an advantage when you manage both. But to a large extent, you have a view or a sight of how long it'll take in the normal course of action. And you'd also put a buffer in for, some unwarranted instances which may come, which may delay the process of getting the visa on time. So yeah, at
Yeah,
least.
interesting.
Yeah.
So now, uh, who do you report to? Where does this combination sit in the organization?
So it depends on organization. So we earlier reported into the HR. We report to the CHRO. So we have one of the functions which came under corporate services, and we reported to the HR, and then it moved to the CFO. Not for any other reason. It was because one of the other verticals in corporate services uh, included a vertical which was earlier managed by finance. So while it didn't really make sense to a lot of us, why did it move under finance? It was primarily because one of the functions required that it sat with the finance. Whereas typically, I think most organization, it should sit with HR because the mobility part of it is a part of a core HR function.
Yeah. Talent development.
Yeah.
Right. And so, um, how does that situation impact, if any impact at all, on the employee?
I don't think it really impacts them. For them, and at the end of the day, how quickly get they get the support? How quickly people are able to understand and give them the right kind of advice is what is important. So it really does not matter to them where the function sits. It's just that the person who is managing it or who they are front ending with needs to be available to give the right support in a timely manner.
Yeah. Okay. So now let me ask you a couple of questions, and you can redirect me if I'm saying it wrong. It's okay. Um, we want this to be very comfortable, and we have a worldwide audience who will see this subsequently to today as
Right,
I send it out on my network, which is quite extensive. It's, of course, YouTube, but also LinkedIn is huge. And then through my own system, multimedia channels, X and Instagram and Facebook stuff. Um, but the primary is business oriented LinkedIn. Uh, so let me ask you about how you view the assignments. Now, business travel is an assignment, of course, uh, and it's a part of a project of what customer development, customer retention as well.
right.
And how often do the functions that you are in charge of, the business travel, which is really extensive and probably is huge, much bigger than the mobility budget,
Right.
uh, but the impact of the mobility is really deep, of talent, of course, and how that talent touches the customer.
So I would break it down into two aspects. Like I said, business travel is one component, and I strongly believe it's a high risk exposure for organizations. Unfortunately, surprisingly, I found this when I attended the WRC conference in Singapore last year that in many corporates, business travel is not managed by the mobility team. It's managed by procurement, which I found very odd, or it's managed by the travel team. I do know in some organizations in India itself, business travel is managed by the travel folks who do not understand what is the impact of compliance. Because when you travel on business, most countries, the government norms, regulations vary from country to country and depending on your bilateral relations, right? So, what you can do on a business visa for the duration of travel and the purpose of activity could be something which is not allowed in a different country. So, that information or that level of expertise in understanding compliance is very important because the risk exposure for the employee when they travel who do not know any better, the passport is there, so it's the individual impact. The second impact is the brand, the organization, and if you're a part of a larger conglomerate, right? So it's a much wider impact because you could have a deportation, you could have jail term, you could have fines. It's not a happy situation to be in. So this, I believe, in many organizations, completely missed, and we've heard this regularly between various organizations that we have worked or my teams have worked. The business always see as that we need to get the business, we need to go and tap and explore and get an opportunity. You're impacting millions and billions worth of business by giving us all these restriction conditions on compliance, but they don't understand the harder impact of what happens if you're non-compliant. There are many instances that we have seen and heard of, like I just mentioned, deportation, jail term, and fine, which you end up paying much more than what your $1 million account you would have landed if you were a little compliant. So that's the business part of it. On the mobility part of it, I would think the speed to land, because again, depending on the bilateral relations between the countries, you may have a longer process of getting a work permit done for an employee to land. Certain nationalities, for example, the Americans or the Europeans, do not need a work permit for up to, say, 90 days of stay. But there is the misconception that after 90 days they can live forever in a country and work without a work permit. No, wrong. You need to have either a residence permit or a work permit or do some kind of registration with the local authorities to live, reside, work legally, right? Whereas if you look at it from the Asia Pacific, part of the world, a lot of the Asia Pacific countries would need a work permit to deploy an employee. So, as a mobility professional, how fast you're able to share the right option for the person to travel on the work permit, how quickly you can, get the work permit on the ground. There again, you're depending on third parties, like whether it's the government, the immigration offices, etc., which you cannot influence. To some extent, you may be able to influence the work permit stamping in the country, or if you're in a fast track process, etc. But how quickly you're able to align, understand the processes, get the right information, share it across a business will help them plan better. Because the speed to land, invariably for the business, they're always dealing with competition. So the customer can just turn and say, you know what, XYZ company is able to land resources quickly, and why can't you? Whether it's true or not, I mean, at that point in time, you wouldn't really know. But this is something that, as a mobility professional, you always have to keep in mind that you're a business enabler. For that, you need to be on top of the game.
Yeah. So here in the US, there is a growing um, interest
Right.
of companies supplying a coach to the people who are asked to relocate,
Okay.
particularly if there's an accompanying spouse and kids, because we all know that if there's disruption and the opposite of peace in the family while on assignment,
Yeah.
the assignment's going to end in disaster and a lot of money, and that may negatively impact the career of the employee. So, coaching, helping, of course, manage the situation day to day almost, or weekly, or whatever, uh, so that the employee can do a better job, um, and with meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, to develop um, more depth and more cultural involvement in the assignment location,
Right.
meeting people, and you can't do that alone. Well, some people could, but it's full of problems and risk. So coaching, in my view, even if it's just on Zoom, it's okay. Nothing wrong with this.
Right.
Doesn't really cost anything other than the agreements. And it's super important to have knowledge that I have you, for instance, to help me understand what I need to watch out for, what I need to do in order to avoid a problem, which somebody more experienced will see that's going to happen unless you take care of something now. What do
Right.
you think of all that?
So I'm not sure if you're referring to the same thing. Are you referring to cultural training that the employees would need to go through, before they deploy to a different country? Yeah, we believe that's a very important factor. For one, I think when we did the travel setup in Tata Com, um, in 9 regions, right? So the way people behave, act, react, or work is very different culturally. So if you are not able to get the hang of it, you will end up with some clashes or not a very happy situation. So same is true of when you deploy a person to a different country, whether they're going themselves or with family. It's very important that they go through the cultural training. I think in some organizations, HR give them a handbook, and it helps them prepare up to a point on what to expect when they go to a completely different environment. And again, if it's a country where English language is a barrier and you need to learn the language where you're going in, I think a lot of time the embassy and consulate do say that if the spouse is not working, is going to be at home, then if you're not able to articulate what is it that you want, or if there's an emergency situation, how do you get across explaining to who we need assistance from? So I think that's a very important part. But again, a lot of organizations do not really invest in it to the extent that they should. And then what happens that you may have situations where, like you said, something can go wrong in a particular country because it may not be culturally appropriate for that particular kind of behavior or whatever instance. So instead of doing the cleanup act later, it's far better to invest in making the employee and the family feel comfortable, explain to them a very brief on, and there are many I think organizations do this cultural trainings. There are a couple of them. So it's good to invest in them because for the employer also, it's a feeling of, yeah, the organization cares about me as a person. I'm not just left out to go to a whole new country and then live, reside, and work there, not knowing what to expect. So I think that's a good, fair point.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for that. So there's another idea that I have had, and my role has always been outside in media and marketing, all my working life, a long time. So, but not on the inside managing mobility. Uh, So, with that in mind, I can ask questions and then learn from you. And now I transfer that out there to the audience, of course. And so my thinking has evolved, uh, and please correct me or tell me that I'm wrong or something. It's okay. I think that it's foolish to send somebody with or without family into a different culture across time and space, across borders, cultures, without first working virtually in that location. Meaning, like here, I'm in California. Basically, I'm working with you in Bangalore. Uh, but of course, I'm not. But by doing a regular scheduled meeting before I get on a plane to visit, never mind relocate. I would think it makes sense for the corporation to get me to work on Zoom with you before I come into your office area. Travel all that time, all that money, all that risk. If I don't learn something by Zoom, I'm never going to learn it when I stumble around and make a fool of myself or don't behave appropriately in the culture. So I would think that should be required. What do you think of that idea?
So I think in some of the companies they do that. I do know a lot of people before they travel overseas on assignment. They work from their home country, working with their colleagues or counterparts in the country that they're going to be deputies, in their time zone, and to understand how business works there, etc. But of course, in the same breath, some of them have worked. For example, the Indian work time shift plus that of the country they're going to be, which can be okay if you do it for a few days in a week, but not so okay when you have to do it for the couple of weeks or month, while your work is under process, because then it stretches you. It may not be a most viable situation, but yeah, of course, I think a lot of companies are doing that. They are getting them to engage and work, but you may not have that luxury when somebody quits, or if you downsize overnight, and then the person is just supposed to land and take over, and there's no handover takeover, right? So then you have to just figure out from scratch. So in those circumstances, you may not have that opportunity. But otherwise, yeah, I guess a lot of companies are looking at that as an option.
Yeah, it's again project management, and how do you do this, And so, how do you see AI assisting what you do now?
Well, we have always implemented AI in both the functions as far as possible, automate a lot of process because it's quite time consuming and annoying to work on Excel data or manual environment, because one, it minimizes the risk of errors to some extent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of process efficiency, but I personally believe you need to understand, sift, evaluate the various tools that are available. Because not all of them are engineered to be adapting to your area of function or expertise. Because I do know when we were looking at TNE solutions, the travel and expense solutions, we did this entire.
Oh, we lost your voice.
They had
Um,
bits and pieces,
okay.
cover all aspects. So AI is important. The point is how you leverage and use it intelligently is the need, and not just merely being a tick box because everybody is using AI. And my personal grief about chatbots is it's not very intelligent. It's a lot of data that has to go into
Yeah.
or for reams of data, right? So
Yeah. So, Sangitha, your voice has been in and out just in the
oh,
last couple of minutes. I apologize. That must be our fault here. But I understood most of what you were saying. I just want to give you an alert. Uh,
yeah.
so let me ask you a question. I see on LinkedIn that you capitalize Sangitha, and your second name has a small s. So, what is the significance of that? I'm just in California and I don't know anything.
That was an error. In fact, I have not gotten corrected. In fact, I think earlier even the Sangeeta didn't have a capital S. It was all small. And then when I see people tag me, I said, why is my name coming so weirdly? I honestly didn't have the time while I was working, uh, to go back and I said, yeah, I'll do it sometime later. But yeah, I think I need to do that. But
Okay.
no, it was a miss on my part.
Well, I was wondering what's the significance in Bangalore of doing it that way, but it's certainly noticeable, and so you just don't forget that. So thank you very much for laughing and smiling. I love it. So I thank you for your time here. I know it's getting late for you, and I'm going to have breakfast in a few minutes. And please come back and let's do this again. And I would like to invite you to consider joining me and a couple of other people in a small group discussion. We do this almost daily, someplace around the world. But in India, I have a few contacts, but I want to grow our audience, our business audience in India. Just so you know, uh, I I would welcome any advice and counseling or guidance on how I can do that. If you would like to introduce me to somebody else, uh, I would love that opportunity, and I promise I will behave. I won't do anything wrong. I'll try not to do anything wrong.
Sure. So, are you specific in meeting people in different disciplines or different streams of work, or you want to be introduced to somebody around the HR mobility itself?
Yeah, I want to stick to what I know best.
Yeah.
But I've been interviewing a lot of people, authors and business people from finance and manufacturing and in different industries as well. Um, but my background for 30 years has been very connected to HR and everything connected with talent,
Okay.
acquisition, onboarding, assessment, L&D, and then the assignment, and then bringing them back, and then what do people learn from all that? And there's plenty of opportunity just sticking within that
Sure.
place.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to talk with anybody.
Sure. So I think I could find you somebody who's been core HR, who's done a mix of L&D, I think recruitment, business HR, and the stakeholder manager. And right now she's a CHRO for a company in India.
Perfect.
And I think she speaks straight from the heart. I
Yeah.
think it's good to have somebody who is open and direct. So a lot of information flow happens. It's worth listening to and learning from each other.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So if it's all right, I will invite you, and you can always say I'm interested, but not right now, that kind of thing. If you would like to join discussions. We on April 29, um, I'm doing a big show on branding.
Okay.
From a marketing point of view, it's the professional brand like Tata is huge company. I mean, multi-dimensional, um, so many different things. But so the brand of the company, of course, and your professional approach uh, is, of course, big. But the personal brand, your personal brand, and what makes you tick, and how do you view the different business things. Okay, so that the combination of the professional brand and your personal brand and the meshing of those two is the theme of this special broadcast, especially now with AI
Yeah.
developing. And how are people figuring all this out, how to use it? What I've been doing using, uh, and I'm not a tech at all, but I've been using, because I do Google, I use Gemini
Okay.
as opposed to Chat GBT or whatever. Um, and I just make friends with Gemini
Mhm.
and say, listen, I'm writing an article and I need some help with the combination of relocation, mobility, professional services connected with foreign direct investment of money coming in to, for instance, the U.S., let's say California, could be anywhere, and they're going to buy land, maybe like the Saudi investment organizations. They're investing huge amounts in land development in the U.S. and building factories, data centers. It's really a big deal. And they do it correctly, legally, it's all appropriate, but they contract with local economic development organizations, which are usually government oriented uh, things, groups. and they connect with companies that specialize in land development, factory development, that kind of thing, of course. So FDI and local economic development, or LED, and then what's missing? Once you get all that going, you relocate people to take the new jobs that will be built in that facility.
Right.
And so then taking care of the people and getting them to relocate successfully, comfortably, without interruption. So it's meaning business travel in advance to get familiar, and then the actual relocation. So I wrote an article for this London-based publisher called FDI International Alliance. This is the fifth article I just published for them on that theme. I'll send that to you so you can see what I'm
Sure.
talking about. But I don't know whether uh, India companies will be investing here in California or not. I don't know. They probably already do, and I don't know. But it's huge. There's a lot of growth happening. You would think California is already filled, no more room. But um, it's a huge place here. And you get 20 miles, 30 miles back from the ocean
Yeah.
inland. It's wide open spaces, and there's lots of land to develop, but the weather is not the same as by the ocean, of course. So your costs of living are different, your lifestyle is different. But that is a theme of tying things together, sort of what you're doing by combining and being responsible up at this level over the business travel, which is, of course, frequent and can be really expensive and very productive for the business, combined with the talent mobility thing. You're right in the middle of that kind of thinking. So that's why I'm bringing that up. I'm after listening to you speak about what you're doing and your enthusiasm for this kind of challenge, and some of the people I know would love to meet you and tune in. I'm going to send them this program, and I'm not asking for any favors or anything. Um, it's just connecting because I think what you're doing and the attitude and the support that you have from above is really super interesting. And my experience with this London publisher and putting relocation together with FDI, foreign direct investment, it sounds like a no-brainer, but very few people understand that.
It's connecting the dots in another way.
Yeah, yeah, right. So
Yeah.
let's use this as a maybe a groundwork for another time. And
Sure.
please come back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Nice
And
to meet
look
you.
forward. Same here. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. All right, we're signing off. I'm in California. Sangitha is in Bangalore, India. This is great. I love doing this.